Hi, we are here at Lfsp in Richmond, Virginia to prepare a 2019 GT3RS for use at the track. We're going to start with the suspension. First, Robert Overholser will check the ride height, the toe, the camber, to decide what alignment he wants to give to the car. Then, his decision will be in relation to the suspension parts. Are they going to be changed? Why? What's the benefits? We are going to put some reinforcing plates on top of the strut towers, and then for the brake calipers, we're going to change a little bit the way that the brake pads go into the calipers and over the rotor. So let's see.
So today we're going to take the 2019 GT3RS and install a track suspension. This is a street car that's going to be a compromise between a track use and street use. So there's going to be a few things that we need to do at the initial part of this to garner some measurements, understand where this car's initial settings are, and then we can use that to base our work plan on. All good? Yep. So starting with the 981 and 991 series cars, Porsche went to a different construction of composite materials with their chassis. So there's cast parts, there's stamped steel, there's a mixture of magnesium and a bunch of other things that are used. So one of the critical things with suspension on these cars is actually this casting that's in the front clip of all 991 and 981 cars. And over the years, there's actually been failures where there's cracking in the casting around the perimeter, even on street cars. So Porsche has come up with a system that's actually that you'll find on GT4s, etc., that essentially you can retrofit to any of the 981, 991 cars as a preventative measure to keep the top of the strut housing from basically busting through the hood. One of the nice things about the later 991s is most of the GT3s and RS's owners, and as well as the factory, has allowed owners to order the lightweight bucket seat, also known as the LWB. This car has got those seats, and also one of the things that we needed to do for track preparation was safety harnesses, as well as a harness bar. So the owner has elected to use a Bray Krause harness bar. The instructions for this were actually a little bit vague and relate to a regular 991 coupe, but don't take into account a GT3 or an RS that does not have rear seats. So we fumbled through it a little bit. This is the first one of these that we've installed, but everything worked out well. It's a very simple install, just takes a few minutes of some thought. Careful with your carpeting and stuff, and that's always one of the things that we've talked to owners about, that in the future, if the car gets sold, or if they want to return it back to its full street use, buying those couple of carpet pieces that you actually have to modify now while they're available is also very important. So taking into account if you're going to actually use a 5 or 6 point harness, there's actually a bottom bar. You can kind of just see the start of this. We use the Cantrell Motorsports version. It actually runs underneath the bottom of the seat that allows you to install the 5 and 6 point crotch belt harness.
So we're sticking this 3M style tape to the back of the heat sinks to plug in, because they're emulators for your magnetic suspension. That way it still thinks it's there, and you get no check engine lights, no check suspension, DSM lights, GSM lights, and it keeps all your suspension happy. I think it comes out the top.
On most of the late model Porsches, they've got a wire that actually goes to the shock absorber. And inside, and this was also a lot of other late model cars such as Acura, if you guys remember the commercial years ago where they actually charged the fluid and you could see the magnetic particles move. So inside the damper is an oil And there's actually tiny, tiny little bits of ferrous material that when it's energized through this connection, changes the viscosity of the fluid. And that's what Porsche refers to as the active suspension, or PASM. So with our KW competition coilover, traditionally over the years you have a remote reservoir that contains the actual gas over top of the fluid that's internal to the damper. And that allows us to actually change, by way of the knobs and on the top, compression and rebound of the damper. And since we're going to be using this car in track settings, this is going to allow us a lot more flexibility and adjustment when we're going to be using it at the track or the street. Also with coilovers, just like the factory piece, you can see that ride height has actually changed by moving these perches up and down relegated to the damper and the spring combination. All right, here at the top of the damper is actually a really tiny little Allen screw that fits in there, and you can actually adjust the valving inside the damper. And this is available on the variant 3s, as well as all of the Club Sport, and now some of the variant 4 dampers. And those are actually designations that KW uses for the different levels of coilover suspension that they make for all these cars.
So, thinking we should run the spacer here to hold this line better, or something similar.
Looks appropriate.
Cool.
Well, this is what's referred to as a McPherson strut when you have a coil spring over top of the damper. And you can see the construction looks almost identical, other than having the remote reservoir that's now been capped off with a dust cap to keep the knobs from getting any kind of grit in there. That's the adjustability of the damper. Again, on the top of the damper, there's a tiny little Allen key that also gives you valve control. With most of the motorsport kits that KW makes, it comes with a nice billet top mount that allows some camber adjustment, and typically a little bit more than what a stock unit would allow. In the GT3RS, as well as the GT3 cars and 991s, you can see that that's a fixed position as far as camber adjustment up top, outside of the slots that are in the top.
Let me see the center group again.
So the center on this one goes pad to pad, which usually it's only one side or the other, usually not on both sides.
So you had to pull that down.
So I had to pull this clip out of right here. It's a spring, kind of springs in.
I see.
See if these pull off the shims and usually put on the, these are noise
Canceling.
shims.
Yeah.
So the light yellow, white pucks that are in the actual caliper pistons that you see here are made out of a ceramic, very similar to what a coffee mug or porcelain. Be very delicate with those when you're doing pad changes. They're only available through Porsche Motorsport as a separate a la carte part. Do some suspension, kind of like what we're doing. And Mark wanted to look at it since it's been a few years since they do put the brake pads in.
I got it.
You're close. You're right there. You're right there. You're on.
There you go.
You're on.
The car sends the cool up.
Oh, your little 10 mil. The spring is gonna have to be compressed. Hey, that one in my hand, Brian?
Yep. Yep. Yep.